now for a Next News special report.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a recent courtroom drama, those hell-bent on derailing former President Trump from 2024's election have just kicked their schemes into high gear. With CNN pundits thinking they had the final word, legal experts stood up to clarify facts that blindsided many. And if that wasn't enough, Representative Eric Swalwell thought he'd make a stand only to be confronted with his own words in a jaw-dropping twist. But why is this fight so important? And what startling revelations will we uncover by the end of this report? You don't want to miss our final thought, diving deep into what these desperate moves reveal about the fear driving Trump's opponents. So stay with us until the end. Ladies and gentlemen, just like a backbone supports our body, our sponsors support the top-notch news we bring you daily. By backing our sponsors, you're not just helping them, you are giving us a direct nod of appreciation. And in these unpredictable times, being prepared is more than a mantra, it's a necessity. And that is why My Patriot Supply is offering an incredible 25% discount on their 3-month emergency food kit. Ensure your family's safety. Get 1 kit per person. Visit preparewithgary.com to avail this limited time offer. Now back to our groundbreaking story. Former President Donald Trump might be taken off the ballot in Colorado, a possible swing state. And guess who's overseeing this? Judge Sarah Wallace, appointed in August of 2022 by Democrat Governor Jared Polis. But this isn't just about one state or one judge. It's about a series of legal actions since Trump urged that the 2020 election results not be certified by Congress. Now, some groups, driven by political motivations, are attempting to disqualify Trump based on the 14th Amendment, a piece of legislation dating back to the Civil War era. The argument, Trump engaged in insurrection or rebellion during the Capitol events. This narrative was echoed recently on CNN. John Avlon, a CNN pundit, painted a rosy picture where Trump is held to a higher standard due to his former presidential status. Avlon even suggested that a guilty verdict in Colorado could be a domino effect for Trump's ballot appearances elsewhere. But this bubble was quickly burst. Watch.
Possibly in a way that shows continued contempt for our courts and our system of justice. Can't be allowed to do it. Don't treat him like a child. He's a former president, should be held to a higher standard, not a lower one.
Okay. I want to talk about what's happening in Colorado.
Yes, please.
Too. Can we? Okay. Yes. There is a trial starting today in Colorado, and it is over whether Trump violated the 14th Amendment due to these actions on January 6th, the insurrection, and therefore cannot be on the ballot, essentially.
Correct.
Okay. But there is a little precedent here for this being used against someone else. But go ahead.
This is incredibly important and has been widely ignored because people say this hasn't been enforced since the Civil War, in effect, although I will note it has been enforced against 2 individuals who took part on January 6th, elected officials in New Mexico and West Virginia, who are now disqualified.
They were already convicted.
Yes, but now let's just take a look at this. So the language up there is up there from the U.S. Constitution, not a dead letter, enforced, saying basically if you took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and you participated or gave aid and comfort to an insurrection or rebellion, you are disqualified from holding office, federal, civil, any office. Most folks have been discarding this because it seems like such a long ball. It seems like such a dusty provision of the Constitution.
Just look at this.
Yeah, Ellie Honig. And Ellie will say that we've been debating this for over a year, since the months and weeks after January 6th.
People should hear the makeup room between
it's very fiery, yeah. And I usually win in the long run, Ellie will acknowledge. But the key thing here is that the Constitution is not a dead letter. I came to this through history. It is enforced unless it's amended or repealed. This is in the Constitution. It absolutely should wind its way through the courts. People who decide who has standing to serve on the ballot, like a local state elections official in Colorado, absolutely have standing. And conservative jurists have looked at this 120-page report saying this absolutely applies. It is enforced. Trump is culpable under it. And so it should not be dismissed because it seems politically difficult.
So the reason I love John Avlon, and
you better bring it here, man. I'm gonna be honest.
Well,
he just rolled over.
The great thing about John Avlon is he tells us how things ought to be in an ideal world, which I always say, I agree, that would be lovely. I then come in and say, but here's why it's not going to work that way, and here's why it's not going to work that way. The Constitution, yes, has that very important clause saying you're disqualified if you participated or encouraged insurrection or rebellion. But neither the Constitution nor Congress in the 150 years since that amendment has been passed have told us how this works. And the problem is you can't just make it up now and apply it backwards. Now, these scholars say it's, and I quote, self-executing. What the heck does that mean? If Someone has to execute it. Why do you think we're in court in Colorado right now? And here's the problem. We don't know what this state-level judge in Colorado is going to do. It's possible that she, the judge, rules against Donald Trump. But if that happens, I promise you two things will follow. Number one, the political backlash will go in Trump's favor. If we end up in a situation, if we end up in a situation where an unelected state judge says, I'm removing him from the ballot, millions of voters in Colorado, you're only going to have one name on the ballot. It's Joe Biden, because I individually have found that Donald Trump committed insurrection. The other thing that's going to happen is it's going to get reversed on appeal. It's possible this judge does rule against Trump, but then it's going up the line in Colorado and eventually to the federal court. So it's not going to stay.
Our legal analyst is making a political argument. He's saying, you're making essentially a political argument, which is that we have a conservative court. They're going to be stacked. They're not going to read the Constitution as it's written, despite all their protests to the contrary. They're going to feel politically about this. This is about the Constitution and what it says in the document, whether the Constitution matters. Self-executing, those two legal scholars, originally the Federalist Society, who wrote a 120-page report on this, say it's self-executing because it doesn't require an act of Congress. It does require someone who decides who's on the ballot to interpret the Constitution. And in this case, and according to 14th Amendment scholars I've spoken to, the insurrection applies to the January 6th events, and Trump is culpable. Now, whether or not people just choose to discard the Constitution for partisan political purposes, you're right. Could that happen? Absolutely. Should it happen? And is that idealistic to point out that it is in the Constitution? No, because laws matter, the Constitution matters, and an attempt to overturn our democracy matters, and it runs smack into the 14th Amendment, which says that folks can't hold office if they've tried to
I regret to inform you that we are officially out of time.
Wow. Well, Eli Honig, a legal analyst, wasn't buying Avalon's narrative. He highlighted a glaring issue. There is no clarity on how to enforce the 14th Amendment. So how can you use a vague piece of legislation to disqualify a former president? It's like building a house without a blueprint. And the debate doesn't end there. Representative Eric Swalwell entered the fray, testifying about the events of January 6th from his perspective. But here's the twist. Trump's lawyer confronted Swalwell with his own tweets, revealing a clear double standard. Watch this exchange from the courtroom.
You pointed out that during his January 6th speech, he used the phrase fight and fight like hell, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you would acknowledge that that is, in fact, common, or not, certainly not uncommon discourse in political circles during speeches, right?
I'm sorry, could you clarify?
Yeah, politicians often say fight, or fight like hell, or words like that, right, when they give speeches.
Yes, sir.
You've done it yourself, right?
I have.
Many of your Democratic colleagues do that too, right?
That's right. That's correct.
And when you do it, you're not calling for physical violence, right?
I am not.
And you're not saying that your Democratic colleagues are calling for physical violence, right?
In my experience, that's not how I interpret it, no.
And you judge that by the words that are said, right?
The surroundings of where they are, but yes.
I'd like to show you Exhibit 1000, which is designated as a cross exhibit. And I ask you if you recognize that as a tweet from your verified Twitter account dated May 2nd, 2020.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you wrote, if you think they'll stop with a woman's right to choose, you haven't been paying attention. We have to fight like our lives depend on it, because clearly they do. You wrote that, right?
Yes, I did.
And you were not calling for any sort of physical fight, correct?
No, sir, I was not.
You were not advocating violence?
I was not.
If you look at the next page, please. Okay. And this is another tweet from your verified account, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you wrote, this is just the beginning, they won't stop. Fight like your lives depend on it, because they do. Right?
It says hashtag vote blue, yes.
And again, you were not calling for physical violence, that was a metaphorical fight, right?
Right.
And I could go through a bunch more examples, but I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on that. There was one other I did want to bring your attention, ask you about. If you would look at page, is this a tweet from your verified Twitter account dated February 4th, 2022?
Looks like it, yes.
Okay. And you write there, Cheney and Kinzinger may not be in my party, but in this fight, we're all on the same side. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And what fight were you referring to here?
I had to see the tweet above it to have context, but I'm assuming based on the date that it refers to the January 6th investigation, but again, I have to
But when you say the January 6th investigation, you mean the January 6th Select Committee?
Yes.
Okay, and that was because Representatives Cheney and Kinzinger were the two Republican members who Speaker Pelosi had appointed to that committee? Is that right? And you considered them to be on your side of that fight, correct?
I think I said we, but all of our side, yes, which I was on, yes.
All right, we'll put that exhibit aside. Now, earlier today, Council showed you tweets by President Trump. You remember that?
I do.
Did Council pick which tweets they were going to show you, or did you discuss with them which tweets you wanted to testify about? So,
I'm sorry, so now I missed the... Can you repeat the question?
I think he said that they were chosen by Council.
Okay.
So, one that Council focused on, the 2:24 p.m. So this is Exhibit 148, page 83, and that first one. Do you remember discussing this one from 2:24 p.m.?
Yes, I do.
And then, if you go to the next page, the second tweet on that page. And you remember discussing the second tweet at 6:01 from 6:01 p.m.?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now let's look at the two that Council decided to skip that were right in between those two. Okay? Let's look first at the tweet from 15 minutes after the first one you discussed at 2:24 p.m. Page 83, second tweet on the page. Okay? And at 2:38 p.m., 15 minutes or so after the tweet that you discussed about Vice President Pence, you see that President Trump wrote, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful." Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember reading that on January 6th?
I do.
Okay. What did you understand that tweet to mean?
That we needed 10 exits before he sent it, before the mob had come, but he, I imagine, had seen the violence committed against the officers and believed that he had the power, because he sent them there to stop them from abusing the officers.
So that's, strike that. So whether he had the power or not, certainly he's telling people to support our Capitol Police and law enforcement and stay peaceful, right?
In that tweet, yes.
Yeah. And he told them that in his speech, right? He told them to proceed peaceably and patriotic to the Capitol, right?
You have to play that for me. I don't.
Okay, well, the judges heard it, so I'm not going to take the time to replay that now. Let's look at the next tweet that he sent at 3:13 p.m. If you put that up, please. You see that tweet? He says, "I'm asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence!" Exclamation mark. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you! Exclamation mark. You see that?
I do, sir. Yes.
Okay. Do you remember reading that on January 6th?
I do. Yes.
Okay. What did you understand that to mean on January 6th, sir?
That a lot of violence had taken place. At that time, I was, as I said, probably just arriving with a gas mask in my hand to the evacuation room, and the president is asking the violent right to stop attacking the police.
Okay. So that's a couple of posts between the two posts that you had previously discussed where the president is asking people to stop attacking and be peaceful, right?
In these tweets, yes.
In those tweets. And we looked at a short video of about 1 minute where he asked people to do exactly the same thing, right? To be peaceful. Yeah. And that came somewhere in the 3 o'clock hour, so presumably around or slightly after that 3:13 p.m. tweet, right? I'm done with that. Thank you. I don't have any further questions for you, sir. Thank you very much.
Oh, man. The heart of the issue, Section 3, the 14th Amendment, originally designed post-Civil War to keep Confederate leaders out of power, its modern application is debatable. In essence, it disqualifies individuals from holding office if they've supported insurrection or rebellion after swearing an oath to the Constitution. But is this a fair card to play against Trump? Well, Honig argues that a verdict against Trump could spark a political backlash, potentially favoring him. Moreover, such a decision might not hold water in appellate courts. Judge Wallace's recent decisions also hint at the ambiguity. She overruled Trump's request to dismiss the case, suggesting that it's not just Congress' duty to resolve such disputes. Meanwhile, Trump faces similar legal issues in states like Minnesota, New Hampshire, Arizona, and Michigan. This isn't just a legal battle, it's a reflection of the state of our republic. As we wrap up, it's clear that the moves to prevent Trump from being on the ballot aren't just about political preference, but deep-seated fear. Trump's adversaries seem terrified of a potential White House return, afraid of what truths he might expose under his leadership. They're employing every trick, every underhanded tactic, attempting to wield the law as a weapon against Trump. But as with every twist and turn, the hypocrisy of the left becomes ever more visible to the American public. Their tactics reek of desperation, and with each move, they inadvertently shed more light on their own manipulations. This is America, a republic where the truth has a way of making itself known. As we've seen time and time again, the truth rises and it will prevail. If these trends continue, 2024 might not just see Trump's return, but a triumphant one as he retakes the White House standing on the pillars of truth and justice. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Now keep up your quest for truth with this next news report. And if you found our channel enlightening, join the millions who agree with you. Tap subscribe. Thank you for watching the Next News Network.